This is Radio Havana Cuba, broadcasting from Cuba, free territory in the Americas.
We're transmitting in English on our international shortwave frequencies and streaming real audio online at www.radiohc.cu.
Hi there, and welcome to Radio Havana Cuba's English language broadcast. You're listening to our second hour of programming. I'm Natalie Howard, filling in for Ed Newman, and over the next 60 minutes we'll be bringing you our national and international news. Susana Nieves has our international commentary viewpoint, and then Catherine Lopez will be bringing us a report on Cuba's strategy for food and nutritional sovereignty. Lena Valverde has her weekly feature, The Caribbean Outlook Show, and we'll visit Rach Gamez and her program on tourism called Visit Cuba. Then we've got sports action with Abel Vasquez and cultural news with the Arts Roundup and Lena Valverde. So a packed lineup for today, and let's not waste any more time as we jump into things with our national news and Catherine Lopez.
Thank you, Natalie. Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel denounced on Friday the U.S. immigration policy towards Cuba as a destabilization tool against the island. The U.S. immigration policy towards the island stimulates illegal and irregular flows. It is part of its traditional destabilizing policy and the desire to use the population as a hostage of an unhumane and hostile invasion against Cuba and against our government, the president said on Twitter. Havana denounced on Thursday that, with its abusive migratory provisions, Washington fails to comply with the bilateral commitments and implies a burden for transit nations to the Northern Territory. Through a statement, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs pointed out that the U.S. is trying to hinder the processing of new visas in the embassies accredited in the Cuban capital to increase the discomfort of the affected nationals. The document recalls U.S. refusal to process in Cuba the 20,000 annual visas it has committed to in bilateral agreements and the burden of the reinforced economic blockade that affects the population's standards of living. Added to this are the pressures of governments in the region to demand visas from Cubans who aspire to take advantage of the permanent stimulus to emigrate to the United States. The Human Rights website states, according to the Foreign Ministry, Cuba has addressed these issues through diplomatic channels with the government of the United States and expressed that such conduct is abusive with the Cuban aspiring to emigrate, inconsistent with the bilateral agreements signed, harmful to the countries of the region, and encouragement of illegal, irregular, and unsafe migration. Since 2017, Washington has failed to comply with the obligation signed in 1994 to ensure the legal migration to its territory of a minimum of 20,000 Cubans each year. The current scenario does not move one iota from the traditional destabilizing policy of the United States against Cuba and the desire to use the population as a hostage of an hegemonic and hostile ambition against Cuba and against our government, the statement stresses. Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel received on Thursday at the Palace of the Revolution Mariano Jabonero, Secretary General of the Organization of Ibero-American States, on a visit to the island. Diaz-Canel said on Twitter that during the meeting, he thanked the Organization of Ibero-American States for its contribution to the promotion of education, science, and culture in Ibero-America, and that they agreed in the need to promote inclusive cooperation. On Thursday, Jabonero also met with the Minister of Education, Elsa Velázquez, with whom he signed an agreement that will make possible the opening of Ibero-American States office in Havana. He also held meetings with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Bruno Rodríguez Parrilla, and the Minister of Higher Education, José Ramón Saborío. The Organization of Ibero-American States is an international organization made of 23 member states of Iberic nations in Europe and the Americas and one member in Africa. The Organization of Ibero-American States membership is made of all the sovereign states of Ibero-America and the Iberian Peninsula, as well as Equatorial Guinea. Cuba's first Deputy Foreign Minister, Gerardo Peñalver, met with Crystal Grove at the back of the French Prime Minister's diplomatic cell during a meeting in which they verified the prospects for bilateral cooperation. Peñalver described the exchange of criteria with the official as positive and noted that the parties expressed a good development of ties. The first Prime Minister had already spoken in this capital with Wally Fulke, diplomatic advisor to President Emmanuel Macron for Latin America and the Caribbean. The day before, he co-shared with the Secretary General of the Ministry for Europe and Foreign Affairs, François Delattre, the new session of the inter-chancellery political consultations. They discussed the progress of Paris-Havana relations. In declarations to Prensa Latina, Peñalver considered the meeting as positive. It allowed dealing with a wide range of sectors of the ties, such as economic, commercial, and development cooperation, investments, tourism, science, education, and culture. The possibility of materializing triangular collaboration to help other countries in the area of health was also mentioned, and the relations in the multilateral sphere were discussed. Cuba will implement 7 new rules linked to suspending customs tax payments for passengers, individuals, and companies. Officials from the General Customs and other sectors said Thursday. These rules encourage exports and the international insertion of all economic actors in the country. The main change is that the micro, small, and medium enterprises recently authorized to carry out foreign trade can benefit from these regulations, explained the First Minister of Finance and Prices, Vladimir Regueiro. Speaking at the radio and TV program Mesa Redonda, he said that among the regulations and incentives is the cancellation or refund of the payment of duties when importing goods, raw materials and inputs, both by the state and non-state entities, are destined for the production of exportable items and which generate foreign currency income for the country. Another change is the computerization process of customs procedures such as the registration of invoices, operations and declarations, which speeds up and avoids the request for information that would already be available to the authority that would evaluate the appropriateness or not of these incentives. The central bank will also implement rules such as raising from 2,000 to 5,000 Cuban pesos the amount of cash authorized to enter and leave the country. A regulatory mechanism apply internationally to control the traffic of foreign currency and protect the national currency of each country. The Central Bank Secretary, Yamila Martinez, explained that in the case of free import and export, the limit established is also 5,000 in freely convertible currency or foreign currency, which must be declared through a form by the passenger himself. She insisted that these are measures adopted at the border to the entry and exit of cash, in compliance with international standards and conventions to which Cuba is a signatory to prevent and deal with money laundering, financing of terrorism, and protecting the national currency. Once its limits have been exceeded, a regulation is enforced that establishes a permit from the Central Bank of Cuba, which is quite expeditious since it has 7 days to respond to the request for monetary export, with a due verification that the funds are licit. That's all for today's national news. Thank you for listening.